So here we have the finished rough forging of the Destiny 2 Hunter's Knife, and now it's time to profile, grind, normalize, harden, polish, mask, etch, polish, and wrap. Have you got that? Good! Now as I cut in the profile here, taking off the last remaining bits of excess metal and then go to the files and the grinder, I just want to quickly say thank you to everyone who's been supporting me so far. The channel's grown very quickly. Because not everybody makes it to the very end of the video, I'm going to ask you now, just if you can, like, subscribe, share the video, and if you don't like it, or if you get bored, or you have a thought, please leave me a comment. I'm working on it all the time, and thank you so much. Now, you may wonder why I have cut out a whole bunch, obviously, here, and then sped it up so much. The answer is it takes a very long time, and it is not actually that interesting to watch. But here I've got it down to a nice flat plane where I can put that scribe line on it. And that scribe line represents the half-inch bevels that this particular knife calls for. So I'm going to get those ground in, nice and cleanly, which mostly you start at the middle and work your way out, and at the end you grind a tiny bit and check it, and grind a tiny bit and check it. And now I'm just going to do a little hand sanding to get all those surfaces nice and clean. Once they're ready, it's time to harden this thing. Oh yes, the gut hook as well. That was a bit of a pain to get into, but it worked out. A proper die grinder with a burr on it would make that much nicer. And there goes the forge. Great sound. Getting this heated up now for the normalizing. Now, for those of you who don't know, normalizing is about allowing the stresses that have built up in the material from all of the forging to come out, to relax the crystalline structure of the steel. We're going to do that 3 times. That will also help refine the grain structure, making it nice and small, very strong. And now back into the fire once more to do the final hardening of this blade. I may have actually done it once before this and forgotten to record. But there it is, building up a nice even heat and into the preheated vegetable oil. This is 1084 steel. So that works just fine. And no massive fireball. So I think I had the temperature just about right. Looks pretty good. Sounds good. So here we go. This is post-heat treat. That means both hardening and tempering. There was a slight warp in it, so I took it home to my oven. I clamped it up in, with some clamps and a nice flat, thick piece of metal while tempering it twice at 420 degrees for about an hour and a half each. Now what I'm doing here is just checking to see what the surface looks like underneath that. So we can see it's sanding at the top and the bottom, the top and the bottom, not in the middle. This is in the middle, so there's a slight cupping to it. It's concave and convex. So I have to take that out very carefully, and I think I'll go over to the grinder to do that. So back at the grinder, I'm going to take this off, taking care not to mess up the nice flat surfaces I've already created. And again, this took quite a bit longer than what I'm showing here, but it's not that interesting to watch. Look at that. All polished up. Another round of hand sanding to really get a nice smooth surface, because the next step is to etch it. Now this particular blade has got a arrow motif on either side, and I want to get that etched nice and deep. To make sure nothing gets in the way of the etchant or the resist I'm about to apply, clean it with acetone, and now I'm marking off exactly where my mask needs to go. What I'm going to use for a resist this time is just black spray paint. It works very well. It's not reactive with the ferric chloride acid. And I just have to try and make sure I get that mask in exactly the same place on both sides. I'm removing it here before it gets stuck down, so the paint was still slightly tacky. Came out quite well. I had to clean up a little bit of overspray, so it's not perfect. It isn't, but that's okay, because the overall finish of the blade is supposed to be a little bit rough. At least that's what the client wants, and so that's what the client gets. Plus, I mean, you look at it in the game, it looks a little rough. Into the ferric chloride it goes, and I let this sit for one round of, I'd say about 2 hours, checking it intermittently. And after that, I wasn't quite pleased with how deep it was, but I did need to add my touch mark, so I pulled it out, cleaned it off, and then added in my touch mark. I have a bunch of little vinyl stickers of it, so I cleaned off a bit of paint, stuck the sticker down, and then put it back into the acid for another, I don't know, about 2 hours, I'd say. All done. You gotta clean it off, neutralize it with some ammonia-bearing window cleaner. I think I used up the last of it here, and then peel off that sticker and see what it looks like. The answer is it looks really great. It's one of the best etchings I've achieved yet. And that contrast. A little bit of acetone on that paper towel just to get the paint to come off nice and easy. And I am absolutely thrilled. Look at that wonderful contrast there. After I get this cleaned off, I'm going to polish it up again, a little bit more hand sanding, because the very last step, before putting the handle on, is to dip it in the acid once more, just for, I don't know, 10 seconds, because that will darken up the overall patina and really give it that rough, dark, interesting look that I was after. This final cleanup on the bevels helps fix the edge that may have been eaten into by the acid by those long etches, and helps get the scratch pattern really pretty underneath this final acid wash that's coming up. Again, there's a lot more of this than I'm actually showing. And here it is after the second acid bath, just the 10 seconds or so to darken up the steel a little bit. Edge nice and sharp. And now all that's left to do is put the handle on it. Now this particular blade has a sort of a wrapped handle. And in the model from the video game, I have to say the shape of it's not exactly comfortable looking. So I decided to add some leather pads underneath it with some very strong glue. The glue from that and the glue underneath the wrapped faux leather I'm about to put on it holds it in place very tightly. So now it's just a case of glue and wrap, putting a little bit of glue under each part of it. I'm using a faux leather here for two reasons. One, it's because that's what I had. But the real reason why I didn't seek out something better was that most of the other leathers out there were too thick. To wrap around this sort of shape with the two loops and that curved handle, putting on something thicker would end up with some very strange curving unless it could really, really stretch. And in this case, this seemed to work out much better. Let's just give it a tuck through there, tighten it down, a little bit of glue, trim it off, and that's all done. This is the biggest knife I have ever made. I learned a lot making it, and man, I am very pleased with how it came out. It is pretty. When I handed it off to the guy who ordered it from me, he didn't have a lot of words, you know, in the good way. He was just, wow. He did say, I did not realize how big it was going to be. And I had to laugh because neither did I. This thing was huge. It's 17 inches, maybe 17 and a quarter, tip to tang, and that's just ridiculous. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Like I said before, please, if you can, like, subscribe, share, leave a comment, and tune in next time.